Oh, I like the sound of that. That. Ooh, I must have this track on repeat. Repeat. Oh, you hear that? You hear that? Oh, let's break it down. Oh, let's break it down. Oh, let's break it. Break it. Break it down. Let's drop the beat. Beat. Let's get you healed up. Let's get you healed up. Healed up. Yeah. Healed up. Yeah, let's move it, people. Let's move it, people. Yeah, let's pick it up. Lucio coming at you. Coming at you. Yeah, time to heal up. Oh, turn it up. Turn it up. Turn it up. Turn it up in my headphones. My headphones. Turn it up in my headphones. Audio medic. Audio medic. Audio medic. Move to the beat. Boost. Oh, this is my jam. Time to accelerate. Alright, it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. F it up. Oh, I'm in the groove. Back in the mix. Check yourself. Oh, feel that healing beat. All right, heal up. Heal up. Heal up. Heal up. Healing boost. Oh, I like the sound of that. That. Ooh, I must have this track on repeat. Repeat. Oh, you hear that? You hear that? Oh, let's break it down. Oh, let's break it down. Oh, let's break it. Break it. Break it down. Let's drop the beat. Beat. Let's get you healed up. Let's get you healed up. Healed up. Yeah. Healed up. Yeah, let's move it, people. Yeah, let's move it, people. Yeah, let's pick it up. Lucio coming at you. Coming at you. Yeah, time to heal up. Oh, turn it up. Up. Turn it up. Turn it up. Turn it up in my headphones. My headphones. Turn it up in my headphones. Audio medic. Audio medic. Audio medic. Move to the beat. Boost. Oh, this is my jam. Time to accelerate. Alright, it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. F it up. Oh, I'm in the groove. Back in the mix. Check yourself. Oh, feel that healing beat. All right, heal up. Heal up. Heal up. Heal up. Healing boost. Oh, I like the sound of that. Ooh, I must have this track on repeat. Repeat. Oh, you hear that? You hear that? Oh, let's break it down. Oh, let's break it down.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Off the Wall. It's your boy Dazzle167 back at it again with the one and only captain of the draft tournament, Mr. Ali or Immortal Ali or whatever floats your boat. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem, dude. No problem. So let's talk about what we usually do on the show is we have people flex their SR because I like to tell people what SR. So let's go through some of your Overwatch SR history real quick, and then we'll talk about like specifics and stuff. But just about SR, what when did you start becoming like a high elo player? What's your SR like?
So I've been playing Overwatch since season 1. And I was pretty bad when I first got it because it was my first like FPS game that I've ever played. But eventually I just started, like, I stopped playing like whatever I wanted and I started focusing on like main tank and stuff. And season 8 I hit GM. Season 10 I got top 500, and yeah, from there. Last season I got top 10, and yeah, that's basically how it's been for me.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about before we get into like more of the Overwatch specifics. Let's talk about your gaming in general because you said this is your first FPS. So let's talk about what you first started playing on. What was your origin story as far as gaming goes? What platform did you play? What kind of games were you playing before Overwatch?
So I first got my Xbox in like 7th grade, and I would just play like FIFA and like Rocket League and stuff with my friends. And then I just like got bored of those games, so one of my friends was like, "Yo, you should get Overwatch. We can play sometime." So I got Overwatch, and I played with my friends a bit, but then they quit, but I kept playing, and now I'm here. So
nice. So basically kind of like sport-ish games, like you mentioned Rocket League and FIFA.
yeah.
Okay, so that makes. I mean, I actually haven't heard that before. I haven't heard people who came from like a sports gaming type of background. So you said that you you had some friends who, led you on to Overwatch. What are some of the, what was your initial thought about Overwatch? Like what type of hero did you first start playing, and why? Like what was that like?
So like Overwatch is like not like any other game I've ever played before. There's like when I first got it, there was like so much stuff going on, like so many heroes, so many abilities and everything. And there's like an objective on top of that. Like when I first got it, it was like crazy. I just like didn't know what I was doing. My friends were just like, just pick Bastion, he's OP. So I just picked Bastion. And then I just started playing Reaper because Reaper was easy.
Sure.
Yeah. That's like,
So,
yeah.
but let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. So it feels like, you were playing a lot of sports games. Now, for me, when I think sports games, I think of about like a lot of strategy. Like obviously, you need to determine certain strategies. There's also like a mechanical skill ability to it. But other than like, as opposed to like FPS where you need to aim and stuff like that, like sports games allow you to strategize in a different way. Do you think that type of mentality in gaming allowed like transferred over to Overwatch, or did you have to just kind of relearn how to play this type of game because you never played an FPS before?
I definitely think I had to like relearn like a lot about like gaming, especially like the way you use the controller. Like when you play FIFA and stuff, you focus more on using like your buttons and like your buttons to, like shoot and pass and stuff like that. But in an FPS, you have to like focus more on using your joysticks. So like I couldn't aim like at all when I first got Overwatch because it's like I was just never used to like controlling like my sensitivity like that. So it was
Okay.
hard at the beginning.
Okay. I mean that makes sense. When you say you weren't using joysticks, you mean like were you using like the D-pad for playing a lot of these sports games, like a lot of the like the buttons and stuff like that?
No, like I used them, but I didn't need to like control them as much as I did for like
Oh, gotcha,
aiming.
gotcha.
Mhm.
So it was kind of like a newer way to play the game since you were mostly playing like with buttons as opposed to like with the joysticks and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess.
Do you think that because obviously you were talking about how you started playing main tank, and that gave you the ability to kind of climb a little bit more. I mean, you played tanks in general, but like I know you said you started focusing on main tank and you really started climbing a lot higher with him. Do you think the main tank, like you had the idea of how to play, but like the aiming for you was sort of like the type of thing where, oh, I don't really need to do a lot of aiming with main tanking, so like I think I can get away with playing these characters at a higher level because I don't have to use those techniques as much, or did you actually have to, like what was the deal with that?
So I started off like just playing a bunch of DPS and like off tanks, and I slowly started playing Ryan and Winston because I just found them more fun. And then I just like realized like whenever I'd get into a comp game, like there was no one who was like good at Ryan or Winston, and like I would often like lose games because like people weren't good at it. So I just started playing it myself, and I started focusing on it more.
And did you see like I mean, I think you mentioned how you started having fun with the character, and also it became like a necessity where people
Mhm.
didn't know how to play the character, so you started playing him. Did you also, was there something that clicked for you for some of these heroes like Winston and Reinhardt, for you to be able to just uh, get better than all of the other heroes that you played at the time? Was there something like that just clicked for you?
Yeah, one day I remember I loaded in for the first round. I picked like I don't know something stupid. I picked like Soldier or something like season five, right? And I just kept feeding. And then so second round, I just switched to Winston, and I felt like I was doing a lot more for like my team, and I could like tell by a lot because we started winning after I switched. So I was like, I'm gonna play Winston more, and then I like mained Winston that season.
Do you think that for main tanks, because I feel like there's a lot of, with particularly especially Winston, like I feel like Winston has the ability to frontline a lot, and obviously he's the main tank, so he can frontline a lot and stuff like that. But he also has the ability to feed. Like you can feed as Winston a lot. Do you think that when you started playing characters like Soldier and tried to and realized that you fed, you know, do you think that like that mentality of like I need to just go up front and do damage, and you couldn't do that with a DPS character. So when you switch to a main tank, did it just enable you to kind of do what you wanted to do, play the way you wanted to play?
Yeah, because I realized like, okay, this hero it just doesn't have enough HP, right? So I was like, okay, more HP is better. So I just picked like Winston and Reinhardt.
Yeah, no, and that totally makes sense because I feel like the same way. Like in other games, not necessarily Overwatch. I think, but even in Overwatch, like when anybody first start, if you're dying a lot, I think the first thing that comes up to your mind is like, well, let me pick somebody that can either heal themselves or has a lot of HP, right? I mean, because that's just your go-to. Do you think that early on, was it hard for you to not feed on Winston? Did you find yourself like fragging a lot more than feeding?
So initially, I fed like pretty hard. So I was just like didn't have enough. I can't talk. I just didn't have enough experience on the hero.
Yeah.
But I started watching like some like pro players play it, and I started watching like XQC a lot in particular.
Mm.
And eventually, I just got better like mechanically, and I knew like what jumps I could like take, and like when I could engage and like not engage. Like basically, just knowing what I could get away with, it really helped.
No, that makes sense. I mean, I think at some point watching people, especially at that time, streamers, people who were more, at the time definitely pros, um, enabled people to just kind of learn their characters and stuff like that. Well, let's move on to a different topic because I feel like this is a lot of people are already interested about the draft tournament, which I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, is tomorrow, right? Starts tomorrow.
Yeah, we have games tomorrow for seeding. Yeah, we have some
Okay.
tomorrow and some on Saturday.
Okay, okay, perfect. So, all right, so let's start off with the question about you being captain. So, what do you think you bring to the table as a captain?
Um, to be honest, I just wanted to be captain because, like, why not? I felt like I don't know. I thought I could make a good team. Like, I had like a really good idea for like what I could make out of a team, and I just wanted to be a captain so I could try it and see if it would work.
Gotcha, gotcha. And we'll go through the picks and stuff like that because I feel like it's always interesting. I'm a big fan of sports and drafting. I love watching the NBA draft and the NFL draft and stuff like that. And I like watching what organizations like what they pick, who they pick, and why. Like what is the best way to get their team ahead. So I definitely later on we're gonna look at your team and we're gonna look at each pick and stuff like that and ask what was the idea behind this and what was the idea behind that, and we'll talk about all of that stuff. But before we do that, I want to talk about particularly the stuff in your scrims so far because we haven't gotten the tournament hasn't started yet, right? But even as soon as the tournament the draft ended, there was scrims going on. So like, what have you seen so far in scrims that tested your theory before the patch? So like things that like some people were saying, oh, Goats is dead, and then other people were like, well, Goats isn't dead, or Dive is gonna be perfect, or Bunker's gonna be perfect, or everybody had their own theory. What was your theory before the patch hit? And then once you started doing scrims, what changed your mind or solidified your idea?
I honestly wasn't really sure what would happen because Baptiste, the new hero, like enables bunker comps a lot. But I knew that like while Goats is getting like a bunch of nerfs, like the Lucio speed nerf and like the Zen Discord nerf, I knew like just like the philosophy, I guess is the word I want to use. Maybe not like the idea of Goats. It's just like so good. It's like a must-have on some points. Like King's Row, I still think Goats is like a must-have
Oh
in like
yeah.
certain maps like that.
Absolutely. I think even now, I think that I think Goats is still the we're losing, so we need to switch to Goats. I still think that that's like the go-to comp for right now is still Goats. It's still fresh in people's mind too, so people still know how to play all the characters. I do think that like and you've probably been at a higher elo for a longer time than maybe some other people. So tell me this: do you think that goats? Because this is a question I don't think I've asked too many people, but do you think that goats made it so that DPS players had to learn tanking, like had to learn how to effectively tank? Because I feel like, you know, in the goats era, a lot of DPSs, you know, switched to like Brig or Zen or Zarya, you know, specifically because Zarya can be very much a damage dealer. Do you think that DPS heroes now had to become a little more flexible than before?
Um, yeah, like that's exactly what I think because like you'll notice in like Overwatch League and stuff, you'll notice that the DPS players like they have to switch to like Brig or something or Zarya. It's just like
Yeah.
a role that makes sense for them to play because if you put another support player in to like replace the DPS, then you don't have the flexibility to switch back to DPS if you need to.
Yeah.
And you'll notice like a lot of time, even on console, like a lot of DPS players are really, really good at flexing to like Diva or Zarya. Like the game sense is there, the mechanics are there. And then for Brig, you don't really need the mechanics, but you know the game sense is there. You know.
Sure. And I think it's a different mentality too, because I feel like people who played characters like Zarya and Diva before played it with the mentality of I'm a tank, I'm going to be tanking, there's certain things that I'm going to do. And DPS players kind of go with a different mentality. They go in as damage dealers, which in a GOATS meta they were the damage dealers, right? Zarya was going with the intention of killing, you know, the enemy. They had different intention. Whereas before, Zarya was more of like, oh, it's a support tank where I'm going to support the main tank, which I mean still happened, but I think the mentality changed where it was more DPS orientated. Like, do you think that that benefited from like having, you know, DPS players switch over to those types of heroes like Zarya?
Well, yeah, because so Zarya's main role in Goats is like not only to enable the Rhine, like that's just a default, but like you also have to like pump out the most damage on your team. You're basically the DPS hero in that comp. Like if you die or if you don't put out enough damage, your team's almost 100% gonna lose. So like putting a DPS player on Zarya, I feel like is really valuable because they're like used to pumping out that much damage. It's like they're experienced in that role.
Right. So, let me ask you this. I think we've seen already a new patch go through into the OWL. We've had already the first week of and even right now they're playing you know, different teams. So we've seen the patch go through and we've already seen matches go through. Let's talk about the meta right now. Because I obviously Goats is still alive, but you have teams like, for example, the Chengdu Hunters, which are, in my opinion, probably like they're sort of like the meme squad, right? Because
Yeah.
I feel like they just kind of do whatever they want. They just don't care about the meta. I mean, they didn't care about the meta when it was Goats meta. I mean, they were playing Hammond before, and then now that, you know, they, you know, now that the meta has changed a little bit more, that they can actually get enabled to play some of these characters. So, you know, what do you think of those type of compositions, like those weird compositions, and obviously like the different type of stuff? What are you seeing right now in OWO that's interesting to you?
So I feel like since the patch is kind of new and we haven't seen much of like Overwatch League play yet, it's only been like a little over a week now.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna see a lot of like variation in comps, like as you do like when a patch normally comes out, because teams are still deciding on like what the best strategy is. Like you'll see sometimes like the hunters they just run like meme comps like Hammond, like triple DPS, like or they're like Orisa, Soldier, like Junkrat Sim, and they just like TP'd all around Hanamura. Like they just
Yeah.
TP'd around the bunker. Like I don't know, they just do things that like you never think of, but you'll see some teams still trying to run like the 3-3. They'll like replace the Rhine with a Winston and get an Ana instead of the Zen. They like survive better against like the Hammond DPS comps. But I think once teams like start to figure out what counters what and like which comp eventually, so it's like a circle, right? You have like this comp counters this comp, which counters this comp, which like gets countered by this. And once you come full circle, I think the comp that's like at the start and the end of that circle kind of will be like the meta, but it hasn't like been found yet. I feel like because teams are still like running a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah, but you know, despite all of that, I still think that goats is the type. It's kind of like the end of that circle, right? Because I feel like when everything goes wrong, You know, a lot of teams, even in OWL, it feels like, oh, well, let's just go goats. Like I was just right before the show, I was watching Paris Eternal versus the Florida Mayhem, and you know the Florida Mayhem were playing Last Point on Blizzard World, and you know they felt you know they were playing different stuff, and all of a sudden they kind of changed to goats. Which, by the way, I mean I think Third Point Blizzard World is a great goats area, right? Because it's a smaller area and it's a very brawly area. But I do feel like they couldn't really do anything on any other type of composition, and they just by default just went to goats. So I do think that the end of that circle can be seen as goats because it's just such a default, and people are so much more comfortable now that it was meta for so long. So I mean, like, what do you think about that? Like, do you think that's the same for? Is that something that translates to some of your scrims and stuff like that for the draft tournament? That you know, basically, it's just whoever's losing kind of be like, oh well, if the map allows it, they would just go goats. Is that something that happens for you guys as well?
So far from what I experience, you'll see like on teams with like a lot of talented DPS players, they'll try to run like the triple DPS comps as much as possible, like on maps with like open space and stuff. And my team, like we can't really play goats into that. We like to play goats, but like you can't really play it into that on maps with, like a lot of open space like Route 66.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll like the first 2 points we'll have to run like dive or something or like Winston goats, and then the third point usually is like a goats point. So like if we lose those 2 points, we're like, okay, just go goats. It's like it's good on this point. We can run it well against that comp. You can force them onto goats. You know.
Gotcha.
Like the thing about like those comps, it's like if they use like their ults to get second point, like on Route 66, and like our team just spawns goats, then we can win a fight when they don't have any ults and then just snowball from there because of how powerful the ults are.
Right. Okay. So I mean that makes sense. I feel like there's certain adaptability that has to happen, and I think that you know doing that enables teams to definitely do that. I also feel like to a certain extent for console, for Xbox console, like high elo, especially for this draft tournament, I feel like there's a there's like a gentleman's agreement where people are just like, listen, let's try to play the least amount of goats as possible, because like even though some people are comfortable with it, like kind of people are already tired of it. So like I can see how players are more like, yeah, I don't want to play goats, and so like they just like, no, let's just play something else, and we'll make it work. So I feel like, you know, in the high elo, there's like a gentleman's agreement for that. But you know, that just could be me. That's just what I'm looking at from the outside. Let's do something. Let's talk about specifics during the draft itself, because I don't know everybody in the community yet. You know, I'm still getting used to a lot of the names. So when I saw the draft tournament, I was like, oh, I know that person. I know that. Oh, I don't know that person. I don't know that. So let's look at the list for the draft that we have so far, and then let's talk about exactly what we are looking at as far as the picks that we had. So I think for me, you know, I still, some of these names are still unfamiliar. So let's talk about your picks, and let's go for the number one pick that you had, which is Taiwan Pingu. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about that as a pick, because I heard you know, I think when I had Mocha on and I had Dexento, you know, we were talking about that, and the first thing that they were saying was like, he's a smart player. He's a, you know, I think that's why Ali drafted it. So what was your intention with your first pick of the draft?
Okay, so I knew I needed to get Pingu first because I was afraid another team would take him. I didn't know if any other team would take him, but I was afraid they would, and I didn't want to lose him. So Pingu, not only is he like a smart player, like Dex and Mocha said, but he's also like, he's actually really good mechanically. Like he plays a lot of PC, but his controller aim is still like really good. He frags really hard on Zen. He puts like a lot of damage out, and he also like he has tons of scrim experience on PC. So like his understanding of like the meta and like how to communicate like within a team is like really good, and that's something I wanted from a team.
Nice. So you definitely drafted somebody who you felt was smart overall, right? Like just somebody who understood the meta as well. So I think that was, and that was that your first pick of the draft, like going into the draft. Nobody picked anybody before you. I mean, obviously there were only two people who picked before you, but was that somebody, was that you knew that was going to be your first pick, like you wanted that to be?
So I was like conflicted, right? There are like three people that I was thinking about picking first. So my first like person that I was thinking about was ZR, but T2X took ZR first, so I
Gotcha.
kind of had to scratch that. But and I was thinking about picking up Masuda, but I just hoped that he wouldn't get taken by the time my next pick got around, so I picked Pingu first.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. All right, so let's move on to your second pick of the draft, which is which happens to also be very verbal in the chat right now. The self-proclaimed carry of the draft himself, Mr. Hope's last name, obviously from the draft, Omega Lol. Hope's
Of course.
last name, Omega Lol. So
Uh,
let's talk about Hope's real quick. Obviously, this is a player where you either love him or you hate him. There's no in between with this person. So
mhm.
let's talk about what was your idea in drafting Hopes?
Um, so I only drafted Hopes because I felt bad for him. He's a really bad player. I wanted to boost his ego a little bit. No, I'm kidding. So I I drafted Hopes because I wanted like not only a good like flex DPS player, but I also wanted like I wanted someone who can like shot call a lot and like be vocal from a DPS position. And I've played with Hopes a lot, and I thought he'd be a good pick for that role.
Gotcha. So definitely somebody who's vocal and somebody who can. I mean, he also is flexible, right? Because I've seen him play a good amount of Zarya and Goats. I've seen him do a lot of really good DPSing. So obviously somebody who's flexible enough to switch on and off different stuff. But like you said, also somebody who is a shot caller. Which I mean, if we're reading chat correctly, he also says that most of his shot calling is just calling everybody shit. So that also could be part of it. He could bring that to the table as well. So, all right. So let's move on to the third pick. Because I don't personally know this person. I think I've seen their name float around and stuff like that. What was the idea behind the third pick of the draft?
Um, so I was on a team with Sci-Fi for the Lame Sauce tournament, MNK Police, but that didn't really work out uh, due to reasons that won't be discussed. But so I kind of wanted a second chance with Hopes and Sci-Fi
Okay.
because I thought we could make it work. And I've played with Sci-Fi a lot. I know he's really good on Zarya, and he can also like unlike a lot of console off tanks who are like mostly like Zarya mains, like they don't really play a lot of Diva, but Sci-Fi is like solid on Diva. So I wanted him third.
Gotcha. So so these changes. I don't know if this obviously I don't think this list is up to date or anything, right? Am I correct about that? I don't think that this is completely correct, but um
Not completely. No.
yes. So like when it comes to that, like do you then this is like kind of a separate question. We'll go to the rest of the picks and stuff like that. But was there anybody who you kind of left out that you had in mind later on, where it was like, oh well, if this person doesn't pan out, then I can go grab this other person? Was there any other people that you eventually brought onto your team?
Um, so I think like my goal for the draft was like to secure like Pingu and Sci-Fi early because I didn't want any chances of them getting taken. I wanted like a solid flex support, solid off tank. And I picked Hope second just because I felt bad for him. You know, he's really bad, like I said. But
Got it.
But so for like my next few picks, I just wanted to like round out the team with people I knew I could trust to perform. So I picked up like Kint, I picked up Ace, I got Nutty, and yeah.
Okay, well let's talk about some of the rest of your picks here. So let's talk about Agony. what was that pick like? Well, what did that person bring to the table?
So Agni actually isn't on the team anymore. He had to leave for some IRL reasons, but I originally
Gotcha.
drafted him because I know he's like a god Zen, and he was on my Lame Sauce team, and yeah, I just wanted to kind of get that going again.
So
See if we could.
is there anybody that you sought out for a replacement for him?
Uh, so Agni and Pingu actually play the same role.
Gotcha.
So yeah, we're just gonna have Pingu play flex support instead of Agni.
Gotcha. Okay. Next pick. What was the pick behind this, and how, why did you pick this person? I think
Kint.
Kint. Yeah.
So Mhm. so Kint, I've played with him a lot since like I think a few months ago I started playing with him, but I knew he was a solid DPS player before that. But when I started playing with him, we had a lot of synergy together. Like I would play Winston, he'd play like Genji. We'd go on the same target. Like almost instantly, they get deleted.
Oh, okay.
Uh, he's like really flexible. He's like smart in the way he plays on DPS. He's actually really good on like projectile stuff like Pharah and Hanzo. And so I thought
Gotcha.
that would complement Hope's hero pool a lot. So
Yeah,
I
because
picked him.
I've seen host play a lot of like hit scan heroes when he plays DPS. So obviously that'll be a complimentary for him, right? I mean, I think that definitely goes hand in hand with that. Let's talk about Ace78. So he's also in chat. I believe he was. I'm not sure if he's still in chat, but what about him? What does he bring to the table?
Ace is he's a really solid flex. He's also like a good vocal player. He has good game sense. At this point, I was just looking for people to round out the team, like as subs who could maybe like step in and do like a really good job if needed. So I picked Ace.
Nice. So let's talk about Nutty. Why Nutty? And was he like he was at the end of the draft? So did you want him to go in earlier, or was it something was like, oh, nobody's picked him, I'll definitely pick him?
Yeah, basically I was like, oh wait, no one picked him yet. I might as well pick him, right? Uh, I know Nutty was like at the time I knew Nutty was like a really good like Sombra player, and one thing that my team was lacking was like a good Sombra because Hopes is like not that good at Sombra and neither is Kint. So I thought we could get Nutty and maybe run Sombra comps with him.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, I feel like that's pretty smart. All right, so free agent pickups. So let's talk about these real quick. As a Lucio player myself, I know Oakley as is definitely a really good Lucio. If I'm thinking of the correct Oakley, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
So was that something that you thought you should pick up? Is a Lucio player? Were you going specifically for a Lucio player?
Um, so when I was like doing this is like right after the draft, so Agni hadn't left yet. I was like, okay, I need like a solid like support player who can play like a couplets where it's not just like one of them, right?
Sure.
So I was like, okay, I can get Oakley. He can play Lucio pretty well. He can play Mercy really well as well. So like we can switch between like maybe running goats and like bunker
Hmm.
pretty quickly, and also complements Pingu's hero pool a lot too, because Pingu plays like Ana and Zen, and you can pair up Mercy Zen, Lucio Ana like that.
Gotcha. Now another pick is the last free agent pickup was V Dioli. I've seen that name around. What does that person bring to the table?
Uh, Vidioli is he's a good main tank. He's definitely solid. We basically picked him up to be like a sub for me in case like something happens to me, like my internet just dies or something like that, or if like if like all of our supports just die, we can put Vidioli in and he'll do a decent job.
Gotcha. Okay, so now we've got an idea about all the people that have that you drafted for your team. You mentioned before how the with the first pick in the draft you were considering ZR and stuff like that. Was there anyone else in this draft that was taken before you could grab them that you were like, oh, I should have grabbed them, or I tried to but I couldn't? Was there anybody else?
Okay, I really wanted Masuda on my team, and I was like betting, right? I was like, okay, I'm gonna hope Sham doesn't pick him first or second round because it's like a snake draft.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, he won't pick him, I'll be able to get him, and then I'll be able to get like hopes or something, right?
Okay.
But that just didn't happen. So
Okay, that makes sense. So let's talk about in general because I feel like there's a lot of really good teams here. Have you scrimmed all of the teams so far, or did you miss any particular teams scrimming against them?
We haven't scrimmed Mocha's team, and we also haven't scrimmed Sham's team. Basically, just due to like schedule problems with like our team or like their team. Like I know Mocha's team has like 4 EU players, so they want to get scrims like earlier in the day. But like a lot of my team is like busy during the day, and like this past week, like my team hasn't been able to scrim a lot because we've all just been busy with like other stuff.
Okay.
So it's just been rough like that. We've scrimmed every other team though.
Okay, so from your point of view, right? I mean, I know that there's a lot of different teams on here and they all have their different styles. I know a lot of teams drafted, for bunker comps. So some of them drafted for like dives, some of them drafted for goats. So, let's talk about what you think is some of the better teams that you have scrimmed against. Who are the most formidable opponents that you've gone against so far?
Okay, so from the ones that we've scrimmed, Vinny's team is, obviously looking really good. I don't know how Vinny built like such a good roster with like the way the draft was set up, but he did it, so good job to him. They run like this weird comp. It's like Hammond, Roadhog, and then like Mercy, like Sombra, and then like two other like DPS, like Farah and like I don't know, I think they had Doomfist when we played them. It's like it's such a weird comp, right? It's so like off like what you'd normally run, but it just works because they're also like mechanically skilled with those heroes. Like we got stomped. It was just really bad.
Yeah, and I've had the pleasure of watching some of these scrims, and I did see Vinny's team. I think it was Vinny's team against Dick Sento's team, and it was um, very unique. A lot of the stuff that they were doing. I mean, obviously Dankus is a really good Doomfist, and when he's in, he puts a lot of pressure on the team. Um, Mook is also. I think Mook was playing Hammond when I was watching.
Yeah.
His Hammond is pretty nutty. So there's a lot going on there. So let's talk about how you were mentioning Vinny's team. Who do you think is a dark horse that people might not see as like a big threat, but might become one?
This is tough because there's a lot of teams that like people like underrate, but they're still like really good. I think either Sibs's team or T2X's team, like they don't like look that flashy like on paper, but I think Sibs's team is really really good, and I think T2X's team has a lot of potential to like upset one of the better teams.
Nice, nice. So well, that's definitely good to know. I feel like that's definitely gonna be something to watch. Looking at this draft, I think that I mean it's I know it's changed quite a bit, right? Because I feel like some people have dropped, some people are no longer there due to their own circumstances or banned or whatever the thing may be. But I think so far, I think this draft is looking really really cool. I'm looking forward to seeing some of these games tomorrow. I think it'll be awesome to watch. But let's go back to our little talk show area. Here we go. There we go. So let's talk a little bit about uh I think that tomorrow specifically, I don't know how much you want to divulge, because I know that you mentioned like I got some stress I'm not gonna talk about, but let's talk about what your game plan is for tomorrow. What do you think is the most important thing for going into the tournament, for you? What is your game plan? Not necessarily about who's gonna do what or do this, but what do you think for you is going to be the most important thing going into the tournament?
So this weekend, we play 4 matches, and I think they're just for seeding. Like none of the teams get eliminated from these matches. So I'm personally not too worried about the result of them. If anything, it's like a good show of like how we fare up against other teams, like outside of scrims. But I think I think like the main thing that our team needs to focus on when we play these matches is like not tilting, because Hopes and we tilt pretty easily. Like we'll lose one fight, or like I'll get our whole team shattered, and then I'll just like my mentals will just like go down the drain, and it's just over from there. Like if like one of us tilts, like it just goes really bad for us the rest of the map. But like every time we like keep ourselves like level-headed and stuff, we do pretty well. So I think if we focus on like the mental game, we'll be fine.
Okay, and here's an interesting thought because I think that like you said, this first few games tomorrow are going to be just for seeding. So do you think it's the type of place where you're just going to like play but not play at your full strength? I'm not saying like sandbagging because I feel like that's too much, especially because you don't want to get like the last seed, but you do kind of want to keep some things to yourself, right? Is that or are you guys thinking no, we're just gonna go all out, we're gonna try to get the best seed possible? Like what's your thought about that in particular?
Uh, I think the goal is always to like get as many maps as we can, see how high we can seed ourselves. But I don't think, honestly, like I've been looking at like the teams, I've been watching like some scrims on streams. I don't think the gap is as big as some people think it'll be. I don't think seeding will matter too much, to be honest, because I feel like there's a lot of potential for upsets to happen depending on how people are playing or like who's playing at what time, stuff like that.
Right. So there might be the possibility where seating doesn't necessarily matter, but because I do think that you guys, for the most part, I mean, these teams are pretty much mostly at the same level, right? I mean, there's not really a lot of discrepancy with a lot of these players. Most of them play at the same type of level, so it's not like there's no like, it's not gonna be like NYXL versus Florida Mayhem. It's pretty. I think it's gonna be pretty even for the most part, at least from what I've seen so far. So coming into Saturday, for some of the rest of the games, do you think that would you what's your strategy there? Because I feel like then might be the place to kind of reveal your strats or try to do certain things. Do you think that that's going to be a benefit for you on Saturday? What's the game plan?
So this Saturday or next Saturday? Okay, this Saturday. So we have two seating games on Friday, and I think for Friday we're just gonna like test a few things. We're obviously gonna try our best to win them, but we're gonna like be a little bit more experimental with like our comps and like a little bit of our plays, and then depending on like our schedule, we'll like go full like we'll try out like some of the comps that we have like prepared on Saturday, see if they work, and then depending on if they work well or not, we can use them or scrap them for the tournament the week after.
Gotcha. So they're gonna be kind of like a scrim plus, right? Like they're gonna be like, we're gonna try a few things on Friday, but like, and see if they work on Saturday. But obviously, if whatever happens, we're going to be able to like kind of experiment and do so. Basically, like a scrim plus, just a little more serious because it's part of the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So, listen, I think that's a great kind of attitude to go into. I think that's for most of what we talked about. I think that's pretty much it as far as me. If there's any questions in chat, and I say that fully knowing that there are the people are in chat are in there. Like for example, I know that Hopes was asking for you to show your Zim or something.
Wait,
Which
hold on one sec. I got it. Give me a minute.
Okay.
For it.
We'll see the infamous Zim that Hopes is asking from everyone, literally everyone that.
Okay,
that
I found it. I found it. This is my Zim.
That's his Zim. There you go.
Yeah.
He found it. There's there's the Zim. So yeah, which by the way, he's always asked every time he comes through the podcast. He always asks my guests about the Zim. If anybody else has any questions. I do see some questions, but I'm pretty sure they're not directed towards you. I think the Extento's asking, who are you? Jay Johong is asking, who are you? But, those are all just people in chat doing chat things. All right. Well, listen, if you don't have anything else that you want to mention or anything like that, where can we find you in social media? Do you stream? Do you have anything to promote?
I mean, sure. My Twitter is, I think most people who are watching know it. It's Razaki with 3 I's at the end, and I don't really stream, but my Twitch is Razaki with an underscore at the end.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, listen. Good luck on the tournament. Good luck on obviously tomorrow and Saturday, and in the tournament in general. I'll be looking forward to it. Hopefully, I don't know if this is gonna be the case, but I think because Scary is playing, hopefully they might need somebody to cast. So I'm gonna try to tell Tracer over there, Hayden. I'm gonna be like, yo, you need somebody to cast? Hit me up, bro. Because I think that would be really fun, especially watching all you guys. But regardless, I'll definitely watch it. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun, and we'll definitely. I think it'll be an awesome thing to see. Before we leave, I want to let everybody know tomorrow on the show we're gonna have Plums. So another Lucio main we're gonna have on the show. Very good friend. We're gonna talk to him about because I don't know, he was originally on a team, and then I don't think he's not anymore. So we'll talk a little bit more about that with him tomorrow. And
Wait.
I think.
Wait, Plums, he's not on a team?
I don't think so. Well,
I have a space. I might have to pick him up.
Well, here's the thing. Now, I haven't spoken about this to Plums directly, but from what I heard, he was filling in for some scrims, and then like he was on the fence on whether he wanted to stay on a team or not. I don't know. So I'll get the full story on him tomorrow, obviously on the show. We'll talk about it. He could be on a team. He could have been picked up. I have no idea. We'll talk. So we'll talk a little bit about that, because he's obviously, and this is just from one of the scrims I was watching. Plums is like, his Lucio is like a game changer. I feel like he's such an aggressive Lucio that can do so much damage. So I'd be very interested in watching him get on a team if he isn't already. So we'll talk about that.
He was also on my lame sauce team, which didn't work out, and he was really, really good. Like in our scrims, like he would just build beat drop like so much faster than like every other Lucio, and it would honestly like win us fights because we just have beat before they did.
Yeah,
like, really good.
Nice. Well, listen, that's awesome. We'll have him on the show. We'll talk a little bit about that, and we'll get to the bottom of what he's going to be doing if he hasn't said anything or hasn't told anybody yet. I have no idea. I have yet to speak about it. I'm hearing rumors and I'm hearing stuff about it, but I don't know exactly, so who knows. So we'll talk about that. But as for right now, we are usually at the end of the show, we try to we'll try to do like a little like a raid for some of the other console streamers. So we'll do that at the end of the show. I do have one request from the Accento. He says, make Ali give us a room tour. I don't know if that's something that you're willing to do.
Okay, sure. I mean, you asked for it. All right, let's do this. Okay.
We asked for it, chat. Here we go.
Okay, so this is my desk. It's pretty messy. Yeah. This is my bed. It's also really messy. That's my bookshelf. It's even messier.
Gotcha.
Yeah. That's all I've got.
That's all you've got. That was
tour.
That was not so much of a tour, but more of like a camera swivel.
I can't unplug my laptop, so
yeah. So that was good. That was good. All right. Well, listen. That's all we have for today. Guys, make sure you tune in tomorrow. We're gonna have Plums. I believe it's going to be at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So tune in for that. That's gonna be a cool show. I love talking to Lucios, and Plums is definitely one of the best ones out there. So looking forward to talking to him and seeing what's up with him. So guys, until then, I will see you all later. Guys, have a good time. I'm going to go ahead and raid somebody right now. Let me just go ahead and do that real quick before we leave. All right, so we have quite a few viewers ready to get rated. Make sure that when you when you rate somebody from the console community, let them know you're coming from Off the Wall. Say hello. Stick around if you like them. Give them a follow, stuff like that. Just make sure you just hang out. All right, guys, that's it. I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.
Yep.
All right, it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 2, 1.